We are back on the Steve Molsberg Show. The Baseball Hall of Fame has announced that there will be 3 new members come the summer. And those new members are Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, and Frank Thomas. And I don't think anyone could say that they are surprised by any of those selections. 8th on the wins list with 355 wins. His record 355 and 227, and an ERA of 3.16 over 23 seasons. Maddux won 4 consecutive Cy Young Awards from 1992 to 1995, and a record 18 Gold Gloves at his position on the mound with the Cubs, the Braves, the Dodgers, and San Diego. An 8-time All-Star. He won at least 13 games in 20 straight seasons. I don't see how anybody could possibly argue with that. And let's move on to Tom Glavine. And Maddux's longtime teammate with the Braves, a 10-time All-Star, a 2-time Cy Young Award winner, and a 305 and 203 career won-loss record over 22 seasons. And at the induction ceremony in Cooperstown on July 27th, Maddux and Glavine will join their former manager, Bobby Cox, who was elected last month by the Expansion Era Committee, along with Joe Torre and Tony La Russa. And then you got 2-time AL MVP Frank Thomas, 301 batting average lifetime with 521 homers, 1,704 ribbies in 19 seasons with the White Sox, Toronto, and Oakland, and never implicated in steroid use at all. Joining us now, that we've given you the 3 players and their stats, is Jared Max, former 1050 ESPN New York radio talk show host and reporter. Hello, Jared.
Hey, Steve, how are you, man? You know, my apologies for not having a video here. I thought I had Skype going. I guess I have I thought I had the video going on my thing, and I apologize not. So
Don't worry about it. We got a great picture of you up on the screen for everyone watching at Newsmax TV.
I'm not a first ballot tech guy.
Well, these guys were first ballot guys, and they got in, and I'm sure you would agree, all deservingly.
Oh, yeah. I was a little bit surprised at how high the vote was for Tom Glavine, and I was really happy about that. So high that Glavine got 91.9% of the vote. And that a guy who reminds me a little bit of Glavine and even a little bit of Maddux was Mike Messina, the longtime Baltimore Oriole and New York Yankee, who got only 20.3% of the vote in his first shot. And you know, Messina, for folks around New York, you know, might be a little disappointed. Moose said a few months back he did not expect to get in on a first ballot. Right. Hopefully one day he does. And with all the talk about steroids, Steve, I remember it was spring training a few years back, and I went up to Messina, and players were so sick and tired of being asked about things with Alex Rodriguez. I walked up to Messina and said, you know what, talk to me about you. Do you think you belong in the Hall of Fame? And he was so happy to hear that, to not be talking about somebody else. And he was very gracious, not, you know, a little bit more of a rare time for Messina during his career. But I think he proved that one day maybe he'll get in. As for the guys who are in, Greg Maddux, was there ever the professor? That's why he has that name, right? 355 wins in 227, 4 straight Cy Youngs. Tom Glavine, 305 wins, the 2 teammates with the Braves all that time. That's kind of cool. As far as baseball history goes, Steve, where have we had something where 2 teammates who pitched together got in at the same time?
Yeah, and their manager.
And Bobby Cox as well.
Going to be very cool.
And Frank Thomas, too. I think Frank Thomas deserves it. I know there was always the stuff about a DH. He played most of his games as a DH, but you hit 521 home runs and bat over 300, you get it. Craig Biggio, it's too bad he misses by just 2 votes. He'll get in the next one. You know, you wonder about Piazza, Clemens, Bonds. Roger and Barry just got about 35%.
Well, that's what I want to talk to you about. Yeah, you know, the Sosas and McGuires and the Clemens and the Bonds and the Rafael Palmeiro, who hit over 500 home runs. I mean, I just don't see, unless the tide changes significantly, I just don't see it.
I don't see it either. Rafael Palmeiro was no longer, in fact, going to be on the Hall of Fame ballot because he got 4.4%. You need at least 5% of the vote.
Yeah.
Clemens and Bonds, it'll be interesting to see where these numbers go. I think in time, we're going to start to see Bonds numbers tick up a little bit. I think more so than Clemens. I realize Clemens got a hair more in voting. Mike Piazza getting 62%. A lot of speculation around Mike Piazza. You know, certain people in certain circles have told me things that don't sound kind about Piazza. Other people say, so what, even if he was? Look at the competition that was going on. And that's what clouds all this, Steve, is because you figure so many guys were using that whether you were using or not, people are going to say maybe you were, even the ones we think of as the most innocent and least likely to have cheated, still get asked, hey, well, what about this guy? What about this guy? Piazza, I think, has a lot of people maybe doubting him because explain to me how a 12-time All-Star with a 308 lifetime batting average and 427 home runs, most for a catcher, doesn't get in. But he will. 57.8% is what he got last year. This time it goes up to 62.2. I figure maybe one or two more times around Mike Piazza will be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and that would be nice, especially here in New York. He was beloved, and he certainly had a great ceremony, a very touching moment with his father on the field at Citi Field. I think it was this past year when he was inducted into the Mets Hall of Fame. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and Torrey and La Russa, and it's going to be very interesting. July. I mean, I just can't picture. Barry Bonds. I guess I can't picture Roger Clemens or any of the people we've talked about actually getting up there in Cooperstown and making an acceptance speech after being inducted into the Hall of Fame. I just can't see it happening. And, I don't think it should happen. On the other hand, if I want to play devil's advocate, what about the greenies? What about the tubs of greenies that people look like M&Ms that these players would take, amphetamines on a regular basis? And, it doesn't matter what the drug was because that was condoned and allowed and this wasn't. What's the difference? I don't know, but I just think,
Steve, I was talking to somebody today who's pretty well versed with steroids and HGH and all different things that are put in our body. And this person was talking to me about how golfers use beta blockers and stuff for levels of concentration on the course, and that guys are taking stuff for heart medicine or Viagra and Cialis, believe it or not, to which is for something downstairs to take care of your focus upstairs. Who knows? Look, when it comes down to it, if you can sleep, put your head on the pillow at the end of the night and sleep because you're a good man and you didn't cheat, I'd rather hang out with you than the guy who did.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. All right, let's move on to the playoff picture. It's going to be very interesting come this weekend. We're down to the nitty-gritty, almost the real nitty-gritty. So go ahead.
No, it's the Elite Eight. We got Saints at Seahawks, Colts at Patriots, Niners, Panthers, Chargers, Broncos. Steve, if I can toot my own horn for a moment and ask you, our listeners on Twitter, I'm at Jared_Max. Last week, I nearly nailed 3 of the 4 games right by score. I had the Chiefs with losing to the Chargers by like 16. By 17, they lost by 16 or something like that.
Is that better than Tim Tebow picking the championship game outcome by missing by 1 point?
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. I think he had it by 1 point off. Yeah. But anyway, go ahead. I digress. Go ahead.
So this week I like the Saints to beat the Seahawks 26-20, despite the fact that Seattle crushed New Orleans back in Week 13. Seahawks have lost only 1 home game in the last 2 seasons. I think this next one is coming, and that's really just.
But that would be 2. So 2 in a row on the road for the Saints. Did I lose you? I think we lost him. I heard a. So he was on Skype with the audio. Is that it? Yeah, all right. Let's try him back at his phone number, which should be on there. I hope it's on. Yeah, it is. It is. So, yeah, we'll get Jared back. Interesting because, I'm under the impression that the Saints' road victory was a very rare playoff road victory for that team. In fact, they broke a long road losing streak, if I have my facts straight. And maybe I don't, because that happened to me once before in my life. So we'll get Jared back on the telly. And as soon as we do, but we got 4 games, and then it's going to be the championship games, and then it's going to be the Super Bowl. All right, Jared. So wait, so New Orleans, if I'm not mistaken, who just broke a long road playoff losing streak, you're predicting that they're going to.
I'm saying 2 in a row, Steve.
Yeah,
that was their first one. I saw some stat. This is crazy that in the last 8 years, the teams who were the 6th seed, the last seed to get into the playoffs, that when they have faced the number 1 seed, they're 6-2 against them.
Wow.
And we have a couple of games there because San Diego is a 6th seed and they're going into Denver.
Yeah.
And New Orleans is a 6th seed and they're going to face Seattle. So don't definitely give it away to the Seahawks. I like the Patriots to beat the Colts, and I think that they're going to beat them pretty good.
That's kind of a favorite pick of the weekend. Andrew Luck's luck, I think, is going to run out.
I thought it ran out in the third quarter, the first series of downs.
They're going to keep it going. Hey, the Niners, that's the Super Bowl team for me. They've won 7 straight. Colin Kaepernick was so dangerous about this guy.
Wow, he'll do it with his legs if he's not doing it with his arm.
He does it, to me, I think I've never seen a quarterback utilize his legs as well as Kaepernick does in this sense. He can make an instant decision. Is it time to run or is it time to throw? And when he knows it's time to run, he picks up the play. We saw it several times last week, and he's so fast. San Francisco, to me, that's the team to beat, despite the fact Kaepernick's worst game of the season this year was against Carolina. I mean, he was awful against the Panthers when the 49ers got crushed. So I'm still going to go with San Francisco. I think it's going to be a nail-biter to the end, and I think Denver's going to win a somewhat close game against San Diego. I know the Chargers are on like a 5-game streak, but tough to go into Denver and win there like that.
Well, absolutely, because it's Denver, not because of cold weather, whatever that weather may be. But were you surprised? I mean, it's so overhyped. I mean, not only a road team comes in. They go into it's the coldest game of the year in the history of the NFL, and a warm weather team beats the home team, Green Bay.
Yeah, the Packers game last week was kind of goofy. They're not like they used to be. Lambeau had this unbelievable advantage, and it seems like it's no longer there. Steve, it wasn't actually the coldest, wasn't it? I remember being there for the Giants game a few years ago. That was like minus 24 with the wind chill. I remember seeing these guys outside and thinking, they're not even tough, but certainly cold enough. Lambeau's not the same as it was. They were perfect. They never lost a playoff game at home, and then the Giants came in, and Lawrence Tynes kicked them. And the Packers have lost several games, since then. And I don't know anybody who thought Aaron Rodgers would just be able to kind of step right back in and be on his game. And that result did not surprise me. I was rooting for San Francisco there.
We're talking to Jared Max, former the ESPN radio talk show host here on the Steve Malzberg Show, and I want to ask you about Chris Kluwe. Here's my take on it. He's making the rounds. He's indicating that he believes that he's not the Minnesota Vikings punter anymore because of his stance on gay marriage and that his outspokenness on gay marriage. He's made accusations against coaches on the Vikings. His hope is that neither one of them ever gets another job or remains as an NFL coach. They've categorically denied these charges. I would think that there would have to be I just have a problem with the way he's going about this, I think. I mean, is there not one witness to come forward? Is there not one? I mean, why didn't he?
Let me stop you there.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of this because earlier today I was reading the latest that no Vikings teammates have yet to come and support his story.
Right.
And that says to me, that's because they're under contract. And if they go and talk, they're done. They've already seen what's happened with Kluwe's fate.
Right.
I don't buy it that when people say, why did he wait until now? Well, isn't it obvious? And the question I would ask for anybody who asks that, what would you do? What would you do in that situation? Steve, this is not an easy. It's not an easy battle because it's not fashionable in enough circles to raise the kind of hell that Chris Kluwe has. And I don't like just to make a point here, and I don't want how could you compare this to this? But if Twitter was around in 1930s and 1940, how do you think Oscar Schindler might have been treated? The point I'm getting at is this: when you're somebody who's on one side and you go to stand up for the other side, whether you're Branch Rickey or Oscar Schindler or somebody who has the courage, the chutzpah to stand up and say, this isn't right what's going on here, folks. And in the NFL, to me, it's a little surprising that this has been allowed to go on. Chris Kluwe, he wants two coaches to not ever be working as head coaches in the NFL. But Kluwe has made it clear that what he wants is that nobody else goes through this. Because imagine you're a college football player who's about to get drafted by Minnesota, and you're gay. You want to go play for the Vikings? Steve, I'm a Vikings fan, and people have said to me,
and you're openly gay.
And I'm openly gay, so people have been saying, are you torn on this story? And I'm not torn on it. I mean, if Mike Prefer were to become the head coach, he's a special teams guy who Kluwe says got everybody in the room when he had it with Kluwe talking and said, listen, round up all the gays and put them in an island and nuke them.
Yeah, well, I just think I have a problem. I just have a problem in impugning someone. I mean, you don't know, and I don't know that was actually said.
No, we don't.
For whatever reason, no one's come forward, and you're probably right. Bill Gates, former Secretary of Defense Robert Gates wrote a book. He didn't resign and say, "Hey, Obama just said this, Obama said that." He waited till he was resigned, and then he wrote a book. So, but I have a problem with the Schindler. I mean, Schindler didn't use his employment as a platform, his notoriety, his celebrity as a platform,
right, and again,
to publicly fight for a cause. No, I'm just saying that. I know you didn't mean anything negative by that or inflammatory by that.
You and I, we're both Jewish.
Yeah. I'm not saying that, but here's my thing. If that college player who's about to be drafted by the Vikings intends to use his player status to fight for gay marriage, then maybe he doesn't belong in the NFL. Maybe he should go to work for GLAAD or somewhere and fight for gay marriage.
That's what I don't get, is that in the NFL, we have this thing called the Rooney Rule, right?
Yeah, about that a certain number of black coaches need to be interviewed for a position before that position can be filled.
How did that come to be?
Jesse Jackson pressure.
So if that's what forced the Rooneys and the NFL to do it, maybe Chris Kluwe being the guy on the inside isn't the one to force it, to force a change toward acceptance. That's all this is about. See, for Chris Kluwe, I don't think this is about politics. This is about Chris Kluwe saying, you know what, my friends here are getting really screwed over. We're all the same. What is this? Somebody needs to stand up for them. And as a gay guy who's well aware of the importance of allies and how important a guy like Chris Kluwe was, and any allies that can be on the other side to say, hey, come on, we're all one and the same. I think there's a need for some change. And there were people I remember when the Rooney Rule came out saying, this is terrible. How could you? Come on.
Well, I think I disagree with the Rooney Rule. I don't think you should force. I mean, a lot of it went for show. Okay, we'll bring this black guy in, and we'll do nothing.
Show, right?
What?
Most of it seems to be for show, but because nobody was standing up for it, saying, "Hey, we can't have that. It's just a dog and pony show." They still do it though.
Right.
Nobody's asking the NFL to like having, say, gay players.
But it's not about gay players. I mean, there is no gay player that's come forward in the NFL and said I'm gay. So it's not about gay players. It's about a political stance where state by state it's being decided. Hey, Jared, we'll continue this. We'll do this next week.
Can I get one question?
I'm out of time. I would, but I'm out of time. But Jared, I love you. Jared Max,
love you, man.
My buddy, on the Steve Malzberg Show. We're coming back. Don't go away.